Hello everyone, welcome to the Vale of Virtue, where we explore our creativity using AI tools available to us right now. Today I'll be sharing with you my method for character consistency using only Midjourney. I've been using Midjourney ever since V3, and ever since I saw that first blob on my screen I was amazed, and I've been chasing the unicorn of character consistency ever since. And this week I feel that I got as close as I ever did. So stay tuned. I will be using the Midjourney website since most Discord users can and know how to use the website, and the other way around it's not necessarily true. I will also be using the Niji6 model because, as you can see here in my gallery, most of my projects are illustrations and cartoons. I know you can achieve cartoon and illustration using V6, but I just prefer the aesthetics of the Niji model. This will not be a video about the cref method, and if you're watching this video, you probably know what I mean by that. It's a method where you use a lot of poses of the same character alongside with a prompt that's descriptive of that character and hope that Midjourney can produce similar characters or similar poses of that character. I also like to use a style reference image to try to kind of bind them together in some language. And I did use and abuse this method, and I did get some cool results. But as you can see here, they are not consistent enough to call it the same character, or at least to call it the same character side by side on the same project. As you can see, the proportions aren't right, the art style changes, even details like her nose is different every time, and you can call it the same character in some projects, but for the most part, you can't like have a book or a comic book or a video and say it's the same character. The first thing you'll need for this method is various poses of your character on the same image, because as you can see, Midjourney can't give you consistency across images of the same character, but it can do so on one image, and will take advantage of that. You can use your own method to achieve this if you got one. If you have played with character consistency and if you use Midjourney for a long time, you probably have your own set of tools and ways of getting things done. But if you want to copy my prompt, you'll see it's fairly easy, at least it works for this kind of character. The words in the prompt at least, are character sheet, multiple angles, and I can change that varying on character. I may experiment, then I just give it some aesthetic directions, and finally, the style. But for me, the most important part of this prompt are the images I'm using and the way I'm using them, and I'm gonna break that down for you. I'm using 3 images here. The first image I'm using is this one, and I'm not using it as a style reference or a character reference, just a link, just an image. And for me, what this does is it hints the model on the silhouette of the overall image I want. It helps to tell the model that I want the same character in different poses side by side. For this effect, I also use the HR of 4:3. You can change this, but for me this works the best because I feel the model always produces or tends to produce 3 poses, which are ideal for the proportions I have on my character because space will be a factor. And because space will be a factor, if I have more character references, they will take up less space and less details. But if I have less, for example 2, I might lose on reference because I want to keep referencing at least 2 poses of the character. Style is very important to me, and that's why I use a reference style. And here I'm using just 1 image for the example, but I can have as many as 6, 7, 8, or even 10, because what I'm trying to do here is tell the model that the images it should produce should be inside that style, and the more you have, the more consistent images you have across the same style as reference, the less of a surprise will be the style that appears on your generation. And that's what you want, control over the style you're using. The same can be said for the character. At this point, you should have an idea of the overall image you want for your character, some traits that it must have. So using a character reference is very important if you want to have a saying on what your character will look like. Obviously, the character reference will not be the same as the character you produce. Otherwise, this method, the cref method, would be perfect and you wouldn't need this video. But as you can see, some general traits are the same. The coloring, she has glasses, she has a backpack, Some of the features you already must know about your character are there. And please make sure that when you get to this stage, you do like the character you end up with, because this is the start of a process that can take a long time depending on the project you're working on. And you should enjoy doing this with the character you have. If you're not happy, just please keep re-rolling. A good hint would be to try to very subtle or very strong, where it will take your image if you're kind of satisfied with the traits of your character, but not the overall, or you want to see some variations, just keep hitting that button and see what comes up, because most likely there will come up some more characters in 3 poses in the same sheet with some characteristics that are already there, and you have a library to choose from. And that's the basis of the prompt I'm using, but keep in mind that this might be different for the art style or character type you're using. When you're satisfied with an image that has different poses of the same character that you are willing to use, just hit repaint. And the first thing you'll need to do is clean it up a bit. Be patient and pay attention to the details that aren't that good. For example, here I selected this hand that looks very messy, and this shoe where it's missing the gray stripe. You want to keep an eye for things that either aren't consistent across poses, across characters here. You want to keep it consistent, so if you see something, even if it's not looking bad, but it's not consistent across the character. For example, here I could repaint this handle or do the same here, because here the backpack doesn't have any and here it does. And for example, I was talking about this shoe, selecting this gray stripe, and things that look bad like this hand. And you can, at this stage, you can just leave the prompt the same and just submit. You might have to do this a few times to get something that you're happy with. And here you can see the end is looking better, the shoe as the gray thing. And I could go into more detail, but this is more than fine for the project I'm working in. Not just for the video, the project overall. This is as close as a character consistency I have ever worked around using Midjourney, so I'm pretty happy with it. So the next step would be to hit that repaint again, and now you will select one of the poses, a full section of one of the poses. Here I did the middle one, but you can take any of the poses you want. And after doing that, you should reprompt it. First of all, as you can see, I took the image link, not the image reference or the character reference, but that just image link I add to hint the model on the silhouette. We don't need that anymore. And I reprompted everything that was concerning the multiple poses, angles, character sheet, everything that was hinting that I wanted more than one character. I took it out and change it for an action. Here, eating an apple. I was able to keep everything else the same, like this direction in style, the subject, the sref, the cref. But keep in mind that some actions are much harder to get out of the model than others. I have no idea why. Maybe it has something to do with the database. But if you're having troubles, try on your reruns, try to keep taking out things so that you can emphasize what you really want the model to do. For example, you can end up with something just like this. And even so, even when you do that, sometimes it's really hard. But in this case, it worked, so let's hit submit and see what we got. And there you have it. You have your character on a new pose, doing something you asked for, consistent in style, in proportion, in details, in color, and you can put it side by side with other versions of that character and call it the same character. To me, this is amazing. But now your character is standing next to 2 poses of itself, and that's not what you want. So what we'll do next is hit repaint again. Inside repainting, what you'll want to do now is select everything but your character. With the lasso tool selected, try going around your character as close as possible without going over it. If you do go over it, you will force the Midjourney model to reimagine parts of the character, and now it won't have those 2 other characters to reference itself because they will be repainted. Still, you gotta get as close as possible, because if you leave huge chunks of this white background, Midjourney will be forced to integrate those on the new image, and it won't make as good as a job creating a background. As you can see here, I've changed the prompt where it said eating an apple, where it said the action the character should be playing. Now it has a description of a background. Here I simply put at a beach. I was able to keep everything else the same, and I also took the cref out because the only character you want in the image, it's already there. And now just hit submit. And here is the result. And I gotta say, I'm amazed with this because you have your character in a pose that wasn't there at the beginning. You chose that your character would be eating an apple. You chose that your character would be at a beach. And this is not only character consistency, but as close as to some kind of control as I feel I ever did on Midjourney. Again, keep in mind that probably you won't get something like this at first try. You have to rerun it a few times. Here you can see I repainted the hand. Now it looks much better than it did before. You can see here. And I'm sure I repainted a lot more of small things that I didn't like. Just clean your image a little, just give it a nice wash before you go to the next stage, which is adding things. And to add something, you just keep following the same methods, as you probably already figured out. You hit repaint. Here I chose this area and I changed the prompt to pirate ship. I was able to keep the cref, but I probably had some trouble getting the pirate ship to appear because, as you can see here, all that flat 2D design cartoon, I took that direction out, that aesthetic direction, to emphasize that I needed a pirate ship. And I usually do this when I'm rerunning and I'm not getting what I want from the model. Then you just hit submit. And there you have it, a pirate ship, or at least a ship. It's not necessarily a pirate ship, but the cool thing is that with this method, if you are patient enough, you can go in detail and repaint here and rerun it a few times and maybe add a flag. Well, you can add, in theory, you can add or remove anything you want from your image if you are persistent enough. To produce new images, just repeat the process. You can use any tree pose image of your character that you want. You don't need to use the initial one, because every time you repaint a region and the new character and new pose of your character appears here, even if it's not what you asked for example, if you ask petting a dog and the girl just appears here just doing nothing, as long as the pose of the character is consistent with the other two and you like it, you can use that as a new reference for a new pose. Also remember that you can select any of these three poses. And in my experience, if you select, for example, a pose where the character has her back turned, the new image that will produce will also be kind of with the back turned, which can be a good thing because it gives you a bit more control over what you can get of your image. And control is always a good thing in AI generations. After you choose the pose and you select, you reprompt that area for the new action. You get your character. In doing that new action, you probably will have to rerun it a few times, as I said before. But when you're happy with the new pose, you can now use that image and repaint everything around your character, everything but your character. Please do a much better job than I did here. Remember what I told you about Midjourney having to incorporate this white background. As you can see here, Midjourney finds clever ways to incorporate this background that you leave, but the less it has to do, the better. And now with this selection, you can prompt that repainting for your background, and that's how you get an image. And now you can clean it up, add things, but that's the basis of it. And after you repeat the process a few times, you'll end up with a set of images of your character in different places doing different things, and we can go over some things that went well and others that didn't do so well. For example, here I didn't notice at the time that she was missing her glasses. That would have been an easy fix when she was next to other references of herself, but now it's really hard to produce the same kind of glasses. Of course, I can incorporate that on the storytelling and say she lost her glasses or something like this, but keep an eye for those inconsistencies because it can make you drift away from your character. Here I was trying to have the girl looking down at a frog, but when I repainted, I used an area that was too big for what I wanted, and Midjourney used it because that's what it does. It plays a lot with the space it has. So I should have just repainted this area probably, and not that whole area, and that ended up giving me a frog this big. This is on me, not the model, and you can do better than this. And I'm sure there's still a lot of inconsistencies, but you can be much more thorough during the process to avoid them. And even at this stage, this is something I would feel comfortable using on a project, like putting these images side by side to tell a story and call it the same character. And here is another example of using that method to achieve character consistency. It's fairly consistent, not just in character, but in style. This style is very different from the other one I was using before. And as you can see, it's still very consistent. You do have this character, this pose, which is a bit more complex, but I think you can make like a close-up and get away with it. And this is the simpler one, so the most distant two are this one from this one. But apart from that, they're all fairly consistent. Just a piece of advice I wish I would have followed, which is every time you get to an image of your character or poses of your character that you do like and you think you will be using later to further develop the character, either through making new poses or new backgrounds, just create a folder here on Midjourney. Just go to Create Folder, make the name of the character. I'm calling it Alan. I have no idea why. Just came up to me. Not very creative. And then you just drag those images into that folder. And when you do that, you'll end up with kind of a library, a natural growing library of your character that you can then use to produce more poses and keep adding to that. Now for an improvement on the method, and I might be getting ahead of myself since I haven't fully explored the method as it is, but I had an idea and felt compelled to try it, and this is that idea. I created a new character and didn't even do a good job doing so, because as you can see here, her nose here is angular and here is round, and don't get me started on this arm, it's hard to even look at it. But let's say this is ready for rigging. I know it's not really rigging, but AI rigging, guess rigging, let's go with that. And what I'll do is repaint, select a pose, a section of a pose, as I did before, but now, as you can see here, I prompted for a background instead of a action, and I kept everything else. I took the image link, that image that I don't use as style reference or character reference, those I left it here, and I hit submit, and here's the result. As you can see, I avoided painting around the character, which is the most tedious part of the process, and also I was able to get a background that actually goes behind the character and not blended in with some white aura that it has. After this, as you might have guessed, what I'll do is repaint the rest of the image. And for that, I'll keep city background, I'll keep everything the same, but I'll remove the cref because the only character I want in the image is already there. And this is what I ended up with. As you can see, I have a much richer, much vivid background, and I avoided that tedious part of painting around the character. So I will be exploring this method further and see if I can control it in any way. Just a few things you can do, either using this method or the initial method, doesn't matter. You can always reframe. And by reframe, inside reframe, you can use either the reframe tool, which is changing the aspect ratio and positioning your image on that aspect ratio, either on start, center, or end, or you can zoom, and you can zoom out as much as twice, and that way you have a different POV of your character in a scene. Also, you can edit the prompt when zooming or reframing, which allows you to kind of change what will, or have a saying on what will appear on the part of the image that will be generated. And here's an example of a zoom out of that image. You can have like a different POV, establishing shot, things like that. And also here is a reframing. As you can see, this is some extra tool that you can use to make the most of having your character in different places, in different settings, doing different things, and keeping that exact same character. And now for something I stumbled upon by accident, which is a flaw, quote-unquote flaw, that the Midjourney team tells us the cref command has, which is when you try to get more than one character on an image, it will force all the characters to look the same. Well, that plays out very well for this method. Here I was trying to repaint this area and kind of extend the city background, but I forgot to take the cref, and I ended up with 3 shots of our character. Now this allows me to repaint any of the sections and have new poses of the character, or I can even repaint, for example, these 2 and keep this one, and then do the same, repainting this one and keep this one. And reframing it on my project, I can have the same street, the same setting, and my character on different poses on that setting. And here is what I consider to be a fair shot at using the cref method with the character we produced. As you can see here, I'm using the images we produced that we consider to be consistent among themselves, and I fed them all as cref to Midjourney. I gave it a fair description of the character, and I also used a style reference because I want to force them all to have the closest style they can between themselves. And here what it came up with. And as you can see, it's not nearly as consistent as what we were able to achieve using the method I'm showing you today. So you'll be the judge, but for me, this can't be used on the same project and call this girl the same as this girl, the same as this girl, but the ones we produced can. And this is my method for character consistency using Midjourney, at least this far. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something. Thank you everyone so much for all the love on Reddit that pushed me to make a video like this. I never attempt to do one, and I was pretty scared. I still am a little. Obviously, English is not my first language, but I had a lot of fun, and if you guys want to see more of this, I will be doing more of it. Please consider liking and subscribing. It would mean the world to us.